I'm Elle. I'm the Keystone Stitcher, and I'm back with something really different today. This is called the Mid-Year WIP Freakout. This was created by Megan of Stories and Stitches, and she's invited anyone who would like to participate to do their own video and then tag her and let her know that you've done one. She started this because I think she's been doing Flosstube now for about 4 months. And when she started with a WIP parade. And the idea of doing a WIP parade again in the mid-year just seemed too soon for her. So she thought she would create something based on something she has seen in BookTube. And she came up with these 13 questions about her stitching. I found in listening to her that I looked at my projects in a totally different way. I do the WIP parades. Now my annual, because I started Flosstube in November, I've just kept November as my annual time to do my yearly WIP parade. But I don't have that many projects, and I typically don't have that many starts throughout the year, that to do a mid-year WIP parade just seems redundant. And so I wasn't going to do a WIP parade this year, mid-year. And then as I was listening to these questions, I realized that a WIP parade is great because I get to see what it was last year and what it now looks like this year. And by doing that, it feels really good to see just how close I'm getting to finishing the projects that I have. But it doesn't really lend itself to me really putting in thought as to why certain projects are getting more work than others, or why some are totally neglected. And during the course of the year, as I'm switching a project, when I'm ready to move on and I want to put one away and pull another one out, I just pull out what I think I want to work on, or what I think I need to work on, because that one can be finished this year. But I don't ever stop to think, why am I not working on this one? Why is this one kind of falling behind? And so as I was thinking of that, as I was listening to these questions, I thought, you know what, I'm going to do a video and I'm going to explore a different side of my projects. So thank you, Megan. And here we go with question 1. How many prior year WIPs have you finished? And how many total finishes have you had thus far this year? Or if you do full coverage, how many page finishes have you had? Okay, we'll tackle the full coverage first. I've had multiple page coverages. Wow. I've had multiple page finishes because I mostly stitch full coverage. But once I started using Pattern Keeper, I quit counting my pages. I did before because I would work from paper and yeah, okay, here's one page done, put it away. And that was how I felt, and a sense of accomplishment was, oh, there's a page done, there's another one done. But now with Pattern Keeper, it's that percentage that you see in the corner. That gives me a much bigger sense of accomplishment, or I don't know how I want to phrase that. And so I don't look at it, and I don't stitch just within that page for most of my projects. So I would have to go back and look at where each project was in January, and then look at where they are now, and then count the pages, and I don't care. I know where the percentages are. Now, what have I finished? I finished 3 projects that I brought into this year. They are the multicolored sampler. You Can Leave Your Hat On, which is this right here, this guy, and Move On, which is this one here. Now, I have one other finish this year, which is Fantail Bird. This is by Whoopie Cat, and I started and finished this in about 2 weeks. So that was that. Okay, question 2. Are there any projects you thought you would have finished by now, or more page finishes? Again, I don't count the page finishes, but progress. Okay, I would have thought I'd have more progress on a few things, but the one that really stands out, the 2 that stand out, are October by Paula Vaughn. This one I wasn't getting any progress on because I started it and then I put it away, and whenever I pull out a project, I tend to go for my full coverage. And even though this is basically full coverage, it doesn't feel like a full coverage. And so I think it was January, somewhere in January, I pulled out my October quilt and I started using it as bonus stitching. And I was doing really great. I mean, it was just speeding along. And then I hit May, and May and June, I barely touched it. So for like the last, I might have touched it in May. I know I didn't touch it pretty much at all in June. And I haven't touched it really this month. So yeah, October is one I thought it would have been finished by now. And the other one's Alice in Snow White. Originally, I set a goal of having that completed by May of this year. And 2 months last year, so in 2022, I picked it up to work on it and went, yeah, I'm so sick of seeing this. And I put it down and didn't work on it for 2 months. And then this year, I didn't work on it in March when I realized I was moving. It was kind of one of these things of, I got the phone call I think I got the phone call like with 2 days left of February, and I moved in March. And then I had to unpack. And so, yeah, I decided it was too big. I didn't want to bring that out. I just wanted a couple little things. And so that's all I worked on were smaller projects. So, yeah, I thought Alice and Snow White would have been done by May. As it is, I think she'll be done. They will be done in August. So check back. You should see a finish by September 1st. What project have you been most enjoying stitching this year? That's actually 2 projects. The first one is Cosmic Wolf, which is this. This is by Paint Free Crafts. And I think I'm enjoying that because those colors that I'm working on, I don't have in any other project. And so that's been fun. I also started with the eye thinking there would be a ton of confetti, and it wasn't. There was no real confetti in there. And so it worked up a lot faster than I thought it would. And that, when you see a lot of progress quickly, that gets you excited. And the other one would be A Promise of Tomorrow. And that one is almost solely because now that I've restarted it, this is Promise of Tomorrow, I recently restarted it and it's working up quickly. And again, it doesn't have a ton of confetti. I'm enjoying seeing how these colors kind of work together. So you've got your peaches and your reds, and they just blend together nicely. And of course, there's the moon coming in. So yeah, those 2 I find are really fun. And yeah, it's going to be one of those things where I'm going to have to consciously not gravitate to those 2 projects if I want to get anything else accomplished. All right, how many new starts have you had so far this year? Until Megan asked this question of herself, and I started thinking about it, and I went and looked, I had no idea I had as many starts as I did. I had 2 planned starts to this point in the year. And I started those 2, but I also started 5 more. So I have 7 projects that I started this year when I only had 2 planned. So yeah, that was shocking. If you want to know what they are, it's the first 2 were planned. So this is Midsummer's Eve. That's by Contemporary Cross. The next one is Strength. This is by Unconventional Cross Stitch. The unplanned starts were Stone Expression by Stitching Moon Designs, Fantail Bird by Whoopie Cat on Etsy, and that one's finished. So Cosmic Wolf, which is by Paint Free Crafts, and I'm stitching this with Tanya. And Selena from Bobo Handcrafts is going to start this as well. Night Fairy, I believe it's Lenarte. And then I've started my very first long dog, and that is Resistance is Futile. And I need to be more conscious of starting things because that's crazy that I have 5 unplanned starts. Are there any projects you've wanted to touch but haven't? Yes, Masquerade. And this is Masquerade. This is by Unconventional Cross Stitch. I started this doing the full coverage version, which is this. And I love it. I love the pentagram in the corner. I love everything about it. I love how the background looks like old wrinkled up pages. I love it. But I love the overall design enough that I wanted to get this on my wall. And I did the math and realized if I eliminated the background, I could save 100,000 stitches. So I eliminated the background, I dyed a piece of fabric, I got it started, and it doesn't feel like a full coverage piece yet. And so I'm having to stop and think, where do I want to go? Do I want to travel with my thread in the back? Because there's areas that are showing that are unstitched. I do have plans to pick this up in the fall. Once I have some finishes done here that are gifts, then I can spend more time on things for myself. But yeah, that one I definitely wanted to touch and haven't. Do you currently have any projects in timeout? No. A promise for tomorrow was because I hated the 10 stitch. And I even thought about not even restarting it. I was just like, you know what, I'm done. I have enough projects. I just won't even stitch this. And eventually I did restart it on the same fabric, and I'm so glad I did because I love it. But no, I don't have anything I've purposely put into timeout. When I put something in timeout, it's usually because I made a huge mistake. And I have one project that I made a mistake in, but I've already frogged it out. So nothing's in timeout. Is there a project you had hoped to have more progress on by this point? Yeah, all of them. My life is different than it was when I started stitching. My children are grown. My grandchildren are three of them are either teenagers or a year out from being a teenager. She thinks she's a teenager. I no longer work outside of the home. I have a lot of free time. And so I like to think that, I can get a lot done. And I pretty much, when I'm working on my full coverage, now non-full coverage is different, but my full coverage, unless it's a lot of heavy confetti, I typically throughout the day can add up to close to 1,000 stitches a day. And if something has no confetti, I can stitch a little more. So then I think, there's 365 days in a year. If I do 1,000 stitches, that's 365,000. So I can do this project that has almost 300,000. I can do this project that has 50,000, and I can finish this project. And that doesn't always work. I have days that I have my grandchildren here, I don't stitch. I have days when I'm not home that I go somewhere and do things. There are days that maybe I just don't feel like stitching. And then there are days that I hit projects with a lot of confetti and it slows me down, or I restart a project, which means the time I spend on that is lost. So I like to think that I can stitch more than there is time allotted in an entire year. And therefore, I'm like that child that looks at a table of desserts and thinks, I can take a bite of everything and not be too stuffed. And then you go, no, I can only have a couple and I'm done. So that's kind of how I am with my stitching. I think I can do a lot more than I can. All right, do you have any WIPs you have unintentionally been avoiding? Yeah. Masquerade, I've already mentioned. And I think that it's because it doesn't feel like a full coverage yet. Another one is Grackles. It's had a little bit of time, but not much because, and you're going to find this very ironic, I was putting limited amount of time into Grackles last year after starting it because I realized as big as it was, I wanted to be able to sit down and put a lot of time into it. So once I really could make that a focus piece, I would put a lot of time in and I would get it finished because I want that front and center where everyone is going to see it when they walk in my home. I adore it. And I thought, okay, I will spend 2023, I will finish off 4 or 5 smaller projects and get them out of my WIP list, bring my numbers down. I'll be close to 9 projects, 9, maybe 10. And then I'll have plenty of time to make that a focus piece and still get progress on the remaining WIPs. And then I do something stupid like start 7 projects in the first half of the year. So yeah, I'm never going to get to that. The other one is probably unintentional. It's not like I said at this time out, I don't want to work on it. It's just when I'm pulling things out, I don't gravitate towards it. And it's because while I love how it looks and it's going to fit the aesthetic of my home perfectly when it's done, it is so boring to stitch. And that is one for sorrow. Now I'm still up in that top white. I've done some of the bird's head and his beak, but I'm basically in that light blue, white, off-white, cream background. And once I realized I was getting bogged down in the background, and I looked at it and I thought, oh my gosh, this whole thing is basically going to feel like background. And so yeah, it's those like, now I know as soon as I get into the darker colors, it'll be better. But those light colors on white fabric, if I had realized that those colors were as light as they were, I would have dyed the fabric. And then if the fabric was dyed, I would have been better about those light colors. So part of it is the fact that I did not dye the fabric because I just didn't realize when looking at it that it was that light. Okay, number 9. We're getting there. How many WIPs do you currently have? Okay, I started this year with 14. So January 1st, I had 14. I have finished 4 projects. One was a start, but I finished 3 of those 14, and I now have 15. I do have 3 that should be finished by the end of August, which will bring me down to 12. But then I have one planned for September, which will bring me back up to 13. So I have currently 15, which was not the plan, which is when I said grackles. My plan was to finish several things this year so that I had more time to give that and still be able to touch my remaining projects. Yeah, I totally screwed myself on that one. So yeah, I need to think about my starts a little bit more. All right, what progress are you most surprised about? I looked at this in 2 ways. First, which progress was so slow that it surprised me, and then which worked up so quickly and is coming together so quickly. So too slow is October by Paula Vaughn. Grackles, because yeah, that should have been getting more attention. And Alice and Snow White, because I literally burned out on it and took time off, and so it's still hanging around. And the ones that are working up faster than I anticipated were both Cosmic Wolf and Promise of Tomorrow. So those are the 2 that surprised me as to how quickly. 11, are there any projects you thought you would have started already? No. I typically plan my starts. And so I had 2 starts planned for the first half of the year, and that was Midsummer's Eve and Strength. Brain fog for a minute. And then I had 3 starts for the second half of the year. One I knew I would finish. It would be a start and a finish in that month. And 2 others that one won't take very long. That one will be starting in September. And one is a Christmas piece. So I will only work on that pretty much in December. Maybe I'll pull it out for Christmas in July from time to time. But if I only pull that out in December, I can have that done in 3 years, so 3 months. So no, I normally plan my start. What is more surprising has been the number of unplanned starts. That, being 5 unplanned starts, that's unusual for me. Okay, 12. What are you most excited about in your stitching for the rest of this year? I'm excited to finish Alice and Snow White. That is a gift from my granddaughter. And so she loves looking at the progress. She already knows where she wants to hang it. And because that's not really something for me, and it's a gift, it's something that I put pressure on myself to bring out more often than maybe I would if it was for me. So I'm looking forward to finishing that. because that'll take that pressure off. And then secondly, I'm looking forward to more flexibility. I'm building in, making plans for the fall that I'll go into here in a minute that will be different. I'm going to experiment with a new rotation, but I will only be stitching on things for me for the most part. I have 2 small ornaments I have to do for gifts, but other than that, everything that I work on is going to be things that I've chosen for my home to keep. Okay, so finally, 13. Do you have any goals for the rest of the year? If so, what are they? Well, yeah, goals, finishes. Let's get those 3 finishes that are close, get them done. And after that, it's relax. I have no goals as far as stitch count or finishes after August. So I typically work 3, maybe 4 projects in a month, and I'm looking at increasing that and reducing the amount of time that I bring out what I would call a focus piece. So I typically work like all week long, and so all 7 days I will work on a project, and a focus piece could get 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and a month. And I'm going to do away with that. So I'm going to have stitching on the weekend, and I'm going to pull out a project, which is my oldest, and I'm going to stitch on that for Oldest WIP Wednesday, and then I'll have 3 or 4 days that I work on a full coverage piece. And yeah, I'm just going to pull out. I think I have like 10 projects planned per month, but it's not where I've planned. I don't want to say this. I've more planned what days I'm going to work on things, but what I'm going to work on in those days, other than like the Oldest WIP Wednesday, what I work on those days is up in the air. I just know that I want it to change. So, this weekend I'll work on this project and whatever that is. And maybe I'll use a wheel, and maybe I'll spin for it. I don't know, but I'm looking forward to not having a goal for my stitching for a few months, because I already know what I want to finish next year. I already know which pieces I want more progress on next year. So it's kind of nice, once I finish these in August, I want to experiment with not having a goal. So that's my goal. Don't have a goal. So now Megan, at the end of hers, she tagged some Flosstubers and suggested that, if you're tagged, then how about if you try this? I'm not going to tag anyone. That reminds me of blogging days, and I think there were people that when they were tagged, they were like, yeah, I don't want to be tagged. I don't want to do this. So if you found this helpful, if you think these questions would give you new insight into your projects and into why you stitch what you stitch, or why you're not stitching what is there waiting to be stitched, then yeah, join in, tag Megan, let her know that you've done this, and yeah, let's try something new instead of WIP praise. We'll kind of mix it up and let everybody have some variety in their Flosstube in the summer months. That's it for me. I will see you August 1st with an update of my stitching. Until then, take care and have a great stitchy month. Bye.